Today's episode is brought to you with the support of the Brain Collective in Harrogate. They're a brilliant team who specialise in helping people understand how their brains are functioning and how to optimise mental well-being. They work with everything from focus and sleep to stress and resilience, using gentle, non-invasive techniques like neurofeedback and brain mapping. What I love about it is that it's not about labels or diagnosis, it's about understanding your brain and what it needs to thrive. I've had the pleasure of speaking with people who've worked with them, and the feedback is always the same. They say they're supportive, empowering and eye-opening. So a big thank you to the Brain Collective for sponsoring this episode, and you can find out more about their work at thebraincollective.co.uk. Welcome to Happiness, Health, Relationships podcast. The podcast where small but powerful daily habits are your future self. I'm Angeline, your guide on this journey to cut through myths and misinformation on better health, deeper happiness and more aligned living through the 6 pillars of living medicine, which are stress management, nutrition, sleep, fitness, reducing addictive substances and healthy relationships. Each week, I interview experts in their field exploring real-life strategies, science-backed habits and soulful conversations to help you heal, grow and thrive. One day, one choice, one habit at a time. Because small daily habits are your future self, and your future starts now. I'm super excited about our podcast today because we're talking with the visionary founder, Emma Jones-Phillips, of the School of Naturopathic Nutrition. And her work is quite fascinating, actually. I can't wait to get into the details of it because her courses, they talk about naturopathy, they talk about Chinese ancient medicine, and all kinds of different things, everything natural, which is what we're all about here on the podcast. So it's drawing on ancient systems as well, and even astrology. So absolutely fascinated and excited to welcome Emma to the show.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Let's begin with your journey. What inspired you to create the School of Naturopathic Nutrition and dedicate your life to this work, really?
Absolutely, yes. So unfortunately, most of us who come into the health industry sometimes have health issues ourselves. So when I started out on a completely different path in a different career, I became ill with chronic fatigue. And at that point, the medics didn't actually recognize it as a disease. They thought it was a psychological difficulty. So I spent a number of years sort of really taking a deep dive at what is this and how do I solve this and get well again. And along the way, after exhausting the medical profession, I met a naturopath. So that was back in 1994. And in 1996, then 2 years later, having successfully recovered and really gained so much from my experience with the naturopath, I then decided to train with the Bristol School of Naturopathy. So I then, it was really a start to a new future, really. I spent many years studying and working for the School of Naturopathic Nutrition. And but then sort of roll on 2005, I set up the college in Wales. So that was the inspiration, really having my own difficulties. And really, it was a before and after for me with naturopathy. I sort of felt, I think I hadn't actually experienced good health for most of my life, but I sort of struggled like most of us. But when I actually became ill and I was ground to a halt, really, with chronic fatigue, it was a reboot to really connecting with my soul purpose. I felt like it was a transformation process which led me to like the real work that I wanted to share. So I've done that now for 25 years and have really shared and loved everything about it over the years. I meet such great people, but also the work really teaches me that we can heal ourselves, that everyone has the tools. They just need to remember what they need to bring into their lives to make that start.
I love that. And it resonates with me so deeply, actually, because I've been on my own personal journey back to health, and traditional medication scares me a little bit, actually, with the experiences that I've had with my family. That medication is great, don't get me wrong, and that there's a place for it for sure. But it also has, the side effects, and, long term taking that traditional medication,
Mhm.
it can have, side effects and long-term problems. So the fact that you're, spreading the word on this, I just love it, really, because that's what I found for myself, to living medicine. That's what the whole podcast is about, isn't it? So so you go into some slightly different aspects of this, which I'm so interested in. What's your take on that? Did you have a thought about modern medicine, or was it just that the naturopathy, just really resonated with you and you just decided to go down that route?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, I tried everything. I went through the medical route and completely exhausted every aspect, professors, etc. And they had nothing else to say other than you're going to have to live with these symptoms. We don't understand them. I had so many allergies at the time, and it was the point in modern medicine where they weren't actually recognizing food intolerances and allergies as an issue. So it was sort of, in a way, everything I had to say and I knew about what was going on in my body was kind of squashed down. So it was very disempowering. But the best moment, I think, for me was sitting amongst a group of doctors who were all top experts and them saying, actually, this is your life. You're going to have to sort of move forward somehow. We don't know what to do for you. So I walked out that day, and that was my then deep dive into there is another way of doing this. And then I explored the natural health world and started with yoga and reflexology was my first inroad. And actually, it was by chance that I was given a business card of my naturopath at the time. And it was by chance on a train. So it was like a complete, what that people would consider synchronicity, really. And that for me was when I heard her words and what she prescribed to me, I felt on a deeper level, this is it. This is what I've been missing. And that actually did involve quite a lot of change in my lifestyle, which I really welcomed because I actually hadn't met anyone at that point who had talked sense. It felt like it resonated with me. And it was very quick, actually, the change. So I, sort of 2 years later, had retrained. Really, 6 weeks into the program, I felt completely different and I knew I was on the right track. So for me, the medical world had no impact on how I recovered, other than to give me that impetus to actually find the answers within and attract the right person. To know that, medics always say they're great at emergency. They're great when we've had a difficult, something happened in the body that's gone wrong. We have to be fixed in that way. But when it comes to day to day, acute understanding the roots of disease, they're not really trained in that, and we shouldn't expect them to be.
Absolutely. And I think that, that's a lot of people experience that, they go to the GP and there isn't always an answer. And I think that, some people do come away disillusioned sometimes and disheartened. And, it's really difficult, actually, and soul destroying, actually, sometimes. So I think that a lot of people do experience that. But I love that you talk about synchronicity. That's the thing, isn't it? And
Mhm.
when you come across someone or something that just really resonates with you and you think, "Oh, yeah, this is it," that I really this it kind of makes your heart sing, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
You get that feeling in your tummy where it just feels right. I love that. That's happened so many times, through my journey as well. We've got so many things in common that, it's just brilliant that this journey to wellness, which is, why we do all the work that we do. We want other people to look at other alternatives, I guess,
Yeah.
that there is another way.
It's an ongoing journey also, isn't it? It's an ongoing journey. So many teachers have shown up in my life, since then over the years. It is an ongoing learning process. And that also is something that's very exciting about the work and experience in the natural health world, because there's always more to discover about ourselves and more to share. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm still learning, I'm a few years into this journey, if you like, to wellness using living medicine. And I'm still learning loads and, still finding out, trying to listen to my body more to find out what works and what doesn't. So, in the context then of, I call it living medicine, you call it, I think you call it a complete system. So, how important is it to sort of teach it this as a complete system rather than isolated remedies, if you like?
Yes, it really is essential, because the body works in a very integrated way, and we could have the most perfect diet, organic, etc., but be unhappy in a particular area of our life emotionally, and that would really then eventually become a physical issue. So we say in this work, if something is unresolved for longer than 2 years, starts to then show up physically. You see that in a history when I'm taking histories with people. So the integration of the emotional, mental, and spiritual state is key. And I think my experience of what happened to me was classic, because I had just graduated in a career that wasn't me, wasn't for me. And I felt that physically and emotionally, that it was sort of like, okay, I've spent the last 3 years studying, and actually I don't want to work in this particular field. And it was a real wake up of it, because I wasn't listening at the time. I was sort of forced in the process. I actually was ground to a halt. So on a spiritual level, it was a way of rebooting me into a new path, which was more aligned with my purpose. So that's one example of when we're not spiritually aligned, if we're following something that isn't necessarily what makes our heart sing, as you shared, Angeline. Therefore, the impact on the body, it may not show up straight away, but it then starts to show up with, various symptoms. And I think chronic fatigue is quite classic of one whole body experience of, not listening to that inner wisdom. And when people listen, they can then really discover who they are. And it was like a rebirth really for me.
Just a quick pause in the episode to let you know about something special. If you're enjoying these conversations, you'll love what's waiting for you over on the brand new Member Vaults page. You'll find free downloads, bonus podcast episodes, and a chance to explore my VIP club. A supportive space packed with exclusive resources. We'll have monthly Zoom sessions or online video sessions, and a private podcast feed just for members. So head over to angelineht.co.uk to dive in. So that's angelineht.co.uk. Everything's in one place, and it's all made with you in mind. Okay, now back to the episode. Yeah, that's how it's powerful stuff, and people get a bit, oh, that's a bit woo-woo, when we start to talk spirituality and things like that. But I read a book called The Psychology of Spirituality.
Uh-huh.
And the science is compelling now, that they've measured the brain when we have those moments of, and it's not religious at all. It can be for some people, and that's their avenue to spirituality, which is absolutely fine. But it's those moments when, we've just come out of a job interview and we didn't get the job, or it went terrible, but we I don't know, there's a glistening in the trees or something, and we just get that knowing that it's going to be okay. That job wasn't for us.
Yeah.
There's like a peaceful feel. That it's okay. We're okay. It's not a dramatic feeling. It's just a really nice, gentle peace, I suppose, that people talk about.
Yeah.
And I think it's all that is a process of connecting with who we are. And there's all little simple practices to do that, to sort of find our purpose. I think that that's what you're talking about there. It's not this big woo-woo thing. It's just a matter of listening to ourselves more, isn't it, really?
Yes, quietening that busy part of ourselves so we can hear what the intuition is speaking to us, and to feel connected, as you said, to nature, and to really feel that we're part of the rhythms of the cosmos to a certain degree. We are in tune with that, and we just actually need to slow down. So the naturopathic stages that I take people through, the 7 stages of treatment, is a way of implementing daily habits. So it needs to be really something that is manageable for everyone. It's not sort of come in and do a big detox and then do that once a year or whatever. It's actually daily habits that build on the bigger connection that we are then tuned into ourselves. We become our own practitioner, and the empowerment is key. So the process of someone discovering who they are and being able to feel that they're feeling better and better every day as they start to unravel this process. That's really very self-empowering, because you realize you are actually the one who's got all the answers. What I'm doing is actually reminding you what you already know, and just this like a self-reflection. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's simplifying it, isn't it, really, into those daily habits. We talk about a lot about that on the podcast. And I'm reminded of something that Tom Whitaker said. He's Master of Science in strength and conditioning. He was on the podcast, and he was saying that if we make the bigger the change that we try and make, the bigger the risk of rebound. It's not sustainable. And I've just done a video on willpower, actually, and how it's a myth. Willpower, it does not work. We might have willpower in the morning, but come the evening, that's just not how we're built. So it is about those, small habits. What can I do today that's just a small change, that's not
Oh,
going to feel overwhelming, but that's going to feel good for me? And making it joyful. Yeah, making it meaningful, and, looking at how will I feel if I just do this small habit today, where I can look back tonight and sort of say, I'm pleased with myself that I did that. Even it doesn't matter how small it is. Those daily little changes equal a very different future self, don't they?
absolutely. Yes, and it's coming from the place of self-care, self-love, really being really cheering on yourself every day, sort of being your own best advocate. You're basically building on that, as you said, so that it comes to an accumulation point then. And I always say, treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. When we're thinking about what we might do for ourselves, like I said, that small part of us that says, okay, what can I do today to create a better situation here? And this is all fantastic stuff, because it's sort of, as I said, it's an accumulative effect. So rather than do the opposite and say, okay, I ate something today that didn't suit me, or give yourself a hard time, that's so destructive for the human potential. Yeah. We know this now in science, because of the way plants respond. And I don't know if you know Emoto's work, the Japanese scientist. He knew performance with water, and he played various music to water and put various words near water, negative and positive, and there was an impact on the cellular form. So he took pictures, and actually it showed the form that was very beautiful when classical music was played to the water. You could actually see it on the image. And then when the water was given negative words such as hate, or even stronger music such as heavy metal, for example, it was quite jagged and not in a full form of shape, So there was a very definite outcome on a cellular molecular level of the water structure. So he documented all of that, and there's lots of research around food and water, of how we treat it and the impact of how it stays fresh or not, really. So that's happening on a cellular level with our physical bodies. If we're self-sabotaging and making ourselves wrong for doing certain habits, there's a negative impact actually at a cellular level.
Wow, that's amazing. No, I've never heard anything like that. That is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, it makes sense if you look on the surface of things because, obviously the work I do, I see the change in people when they do start to be a bit easier on themselves and, treat themselves with the same kindness as they might somebody else. And I obviously know how the brain changes when we do that, but I've never heard of it in water. But it kind of makes sense because we're energetic beings, aren't we? And I don't quite understand that we're vibrational beings, but I guess it's something similar. So it makes sense that we're going to impact the water because that's energetic as well, isn't it? It's a life force.
Yeah, yeah. And we're 80% water. Yeah, it
Yeah.
goes in the brain. And so I usually say you think about water as your liquid crystal. It's connecting every cell in the body and it's helping us to communicate effectively at brain level, at communication level within the hormone system. So the water is so much a big part of this work. It's always the first stage of treatment to get as clean water as possible. But think about your body as a vehicle of water. And then the choices that we might make daily with, dehydrating choices, for example, around food and diet, can really impact that, as well as stress. The stress really impacts fluid balance in the body.
And I'm thinking about sports psychologists as well, and CEOs and athletes and what have you, and footballers. Whenever if somebody makes a mistake on the pitch, they'll all rally round and they'll all be encouraging them, and you're very rarely. I mean, sometimes with the likes of Roy Keane, comes to mind. He might have a go at some of the other players, but they will encourage each other. And so, like you say, the science behind that is if we talk to ourselves with more kindness, we are far more likely to be happier, healthier, and more successful in every way, really. So, that sounds really fascinating. So, how do you integrate traditional health systems like Celtic wisdom and Chinese 5 elements? And I don't know if I can say this correctly, Ayurveda?
Yes, Ayurveda. Yeah, thank you. Yes, so starting with Celtic wisdom and healing is using local foods that are foraged, wild foods, as well as growing your own food. So we all have traditional plants within our locality that actually, when they grow around us, they align with our energy. So the idea that actually, if you suddenly looked out into the garden today, you'd see something actually that would be growing abundantly that really is resonating with your body and something you may need. A classic one is nettles. At the moment, we may consider them as a weed, but they're actually so amazing for blood, boosting the blood, cleansing the liver, good for the kidneys, rich in iron, magnesium. So my grandmother used to use nettles within soups, and she would actually use them as part of like daily habits when they grew around us. So that was passed on through the family. So Celtic wisdom is really ancient methods that we may have forgotten about and we're revisiting. And it's usually something that's very simple, such as growing your own herbs and wild foraging, knowing what you're picking. And that vitality of taking food from the land actually has a profound effect on your energy because it's more aligned than having something that's, shipped from a different country and taken out of season, for example. So it's all about seasonal eating. It's all about living in harmony with nature and actually finding, if we had a food shortage, we would find everything that we needed on the land. And it's that faith in nature that we can actually find what we need if we were to take a dive into foraging and the wild food world. The Celtic wisdom is things probably that you remember your grandmother said or your community, that's been passed through the lineage of the family.
And that's the end of part 1 in our 3-part series with Emma Jones Phillips. I love the way naturopathy allows natural methods to bring about healing. I can't wait to continue this conversation next week. So join us where we dive into all things lifestyle. We consider people's environment and physical health. We get into all kinds of multi-dimensional approach to health. So join us next week.